everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Power Core Productions and Podcastings. And in today's video, we're going to be continuing Naruto Rebirth. What if Sasuke got the Rinnegan earlier? Part 2. Remember, always to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is Power Core Productions and Podcastings that's to come out now and in the future. Also, if you haven't checked out part 1 of this video, make sure you do so before you drop into part 2. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into today's video. So as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. With only 1 month until the finals of the Chunin exams, Team 7 were going to have their work cut out for them, as all 3 members had advanced to the finals and would be looking to prepare to the best of their abilities. Kakashi was going to be overseeing Sasuke's training. However, it would be under much more tighter security to maintain Sasuke's well-being. With Orochimaru now back in the village, and with him potentially having Sasuke in his sights, not only for the Sharingan, but now potentially coming after the Rinnegan, this was a matter of the utmost importance. With the third Hokage making sure that Kakashi and Sasuke were having their whereabouts tracked at all times, and having the best of the Anbu stationed to watch over them at any given point, thus not making it easy for the snake Sannin to get his hands on the Uchiha. And then there was also the matter of Sakura Haruno, who had been bitten by Orochimaru and had been given his curse mark. However, instead of dying as many would have expected her to, she survived, and now had to live with the mark of Orochimaru. And then on top of that, there was Team 7's interaction with Karin Uzumaki in the Forest of Death. Based off of how she was treated, the Grass Village didn't see too much interest in keeping her around. In fact, the Grass Jonin that had come with them had all but given up on her, and she was free to do whatever she wanted, since he returned home immediately as she was the only surviving member of her team. Karin was free to go and do whatever she wanted, except for the fact that she didn't have anywhere to go. As such, the third Hokage would welcome her to Konoha, believing that this could be her home now, and it would give her a chance to interact more with Naruto. The two Uzumaki being invited to the Hokage's tower, as the third Hokage felt that it was time Naruto learned a little more of the truth of his past. After rummaging through some old photos, he would find a picture of Kushina, back when she served as a ninja. He couldn't reveal Naruto's full lineage and his father's status, but revealing his mother to him was at least a start. Both Karin and Naruto would be amazed, for Naruto getting a chance to see his mother for the first time, and for Karin confirming that Naruto was indeed an Uzumaki, just that he had different hair. Of course, Naruto wouldn't be able to learn the full story. However, he would learn of his mother. Her name was Kushina Uzumaki, and she was the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki before him. However, she died on the night of Naruto's birth, and that was why Naruto became the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. At least to some extent, Naruto could now understand why it was the way that it was, and he cherished the picture that he had of his mother. It was something he would value and hold close to him. Jiraiya would walk into the room just in time. Seeing Karin there along with Naruto, it almost stopped his heart. If he didn't know any better, he'd think he were looking at a younger Kushina and a younger Minato in that moment. Although, it wasn't going to get to that point, thankfully. In the end, though, Jiraiya was happy to see that Naruto had met another one of his kin in a way, and he would welcome Karin to the Hidden Leaf Village. For Karin herself, all this was a lot to take in for her. In one day, she had gone from not having any family in a village that didn't care about her, to now being in a warm and opening village and having family to some extent. Naruto would open up his home to Karin. He lived in an apartment by himself, and surprisingly, he had an extra room. Although he never used it for much of anything, Now it could actually have some purpose, as the two Uzumaki siblings, as they would go by, would live together. Naruto quickly adopting to having Karin act as his sister, and Karin was more than willing to welcome Naruto as her brother. And that's just how they were going to be recognized going forward. Then finally, there was Sakura. Sakura would be waiting in a forest along with Kakashi, who had been waiting for the person who was going to be called forth to train her. Once that person arrived, Kakashi would smile happily under his mask as he waved. It was the proctor from the second exam, Anko Mitarashi. "So, is she the girl?" Anko would ask. "Indeed she is. Thank you for taking her in, Anko." "It's the least I could do, finding someone like me." "Someone like you?" Sakura would ask. Anko would remove the collar from her jacket to reveal her neck, revealing a similar curse mark along with the seal. "You're not the only one that snake bastard's tried to get his hands on. I'm sorry you ended up in this situation." "I just don't know why. Why me?" "That's the thing. We don't think it was for you." "What?" "I'm gonna have to be honest with you. You're nothing more but a casualty of battle, in a way of speaking. In all likelihood, he was after your partner, your teammate Sasuke Uchiha. This was a way for him to get closer to taking his power. You just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And in all likelihood, he probably just assumed you'd die by now." "Die?" "Unfortunately, for those who receive the curse mark, survival rate is 1 out of every 10 person that's bitten. Truthfully speaking, and I'm not saying this as an insult, there's nothing uniquely special about you, Sakura." Sakura could feel her confidence dropping more and more each day, and it didn't help being told this in that manner. Kakashi tried to soften the blow, but Anko continued. "That doesn't mean you're a bad kunoichi or a bad shinobi in any way, but you do come from a civilian clan. You don't have any particular power or any particular ability that Lord Orochimaru could find interesting. For the most part, you are the average shinobi, and those are the ones that typically die from this experiment. I should know because I'm one of them." "You?" "You and I are a lot alike, Sakura. My clan isn't anything worth note or worth speaking of. They're also civilians. And yet, even still, I think I've made a pretty good name for myself as a ninja. And now, look at it like this. You were given something that could have marked your very death, but rather fate has shown you other plans, and now you have a chance to live. That's why I'm going to be overseeing your training, to make sure that you can come out of this darkness. In a weird way, you're going to be like a snake that sheds its skin, and what you'll be reborn as is something far greater than what you once were." With that, the training would begin for each member of Team 7, as they had 1 month to update their skills for the next stage of the exam. First, when it came to Sasuke and his training with Kakashi, the way of Kakashi's thinking was to increase Sasuke's quality over his quantity. The boy already had a decent plethora of jutsu, and now after acquiring the Rinnegan, it seemed like there was no jutsu the boy couldn't master. However, Kakashi didn't want to feed into the boy's ego. If he taught him too many jutsu, he might get overconfident and could become too reliant on his own skill. So rather, they took the time to focus on 2 techniques in particular. First, with Sasuke now having the perfect way to learn in all 5 changes in chakra nature, he would go beyond just teaching him the Chidori, but instead would teach him the lightning blade. After all, the jutsu was a lot more potent and was less chakra draining to an extent, and the Rinnegan seemed to pair perfectly with the jutsu. There was also something else that Sasuke wanted to figure out. The jutsu he had used during the Forest of Death against Orochimaru. He didn't know how he could do it, but he had the words just come to his mind. Shinra Tensei. At that, a great wave would form out of him, pushing back with great force. This jutsu, Shinra Tensei, a mighty push. It seemed to have the ability to repel at a great distance. It was pretty powerful and chakra draining. When learning it alongside the lightning blade, Sasuke would learn the limits to what he could do. First, when it comes to the lightning blade, he can use the jutsu 2 times a day. And when it comes to Shinra Tensei, he can use that jutsu 2 times a day as well. It was the max of what he could do at the moment, although Kakashi figured that the boy could work it out in spades given time. Now, when I say that he could use it 2 times a day, I think the better way of reiterating is that Sasuke has 4 open slots at the moment. If I had to be more specific, say if Sasuke wanted to use the lightning blade 4 times in one day, he could do so. Say he wanted to use 1 lightning blade and 3 Shinra Tenseis, then that combination would work as well. Basically, any combination of lightning style lightning blade or Rinnegan Jutsu Shinra Tensei. However, he cannot exceed the maximum limit of 4, otherwise he would hit chakra exhaustion. And even then, each time he uses one of these attacks, it becomes just a little by little less potent than it was the first time. So he has to use it sparingly, and it wouldn't be wise to try to spam all 4 slots at once, so to speak, as it pertained to Sasuke's training. Then next would be Naruto, who would be spending his month training with both Jiraiya and Karin. While Jiraiya wanted to take an interest in Karin and in her skills, for now he was mainly focused on Naruto, since he had the upcoming exams to deal with. And Karin, for the most part, was looking to see what Naruto could do. For him, his new jutsus would be in the form of the summoning jutsu taught to him by Jiraiya. And then there was something else that Karin wanted to see if Naruto was capable of doing. If it were to be believed that Naruto's mother was the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, then it meant she had to have a special kind of chakra within herself, one that Karin's mother used to speak of before her passing long ago. It was the ability for the Uzumakis to be able to manifest what were known as Adamite chains, or the Uzumaki sealing chakra chains, which were made from a special type of metal, the strongest on Earth, and it could be produced by their own bodies. Karin would demonstrate her ability by using the Uzumaki chakra chains, although she would comment that hers were incomplete, as they weren't a solid gold color, but rather they were a metallic gray with a golden aura around them. Still very effective, but not as potent as they should be. For Naruto and Jiraiya, they were amazed. Jiraiya in particular, as he was able to comment on Naruto's mother, since he knew her well, and he could confirm that she was capable of using the skill. So if she was capable of doing it, then Naruto was definitely able to do so as well. Once Karin was able to show him the basics of how she were able to do it, it would require Naruto to do a lot of meditating and a lot of mental focus. Of course, he wasn't able to fully grasp the whole technique in one go. In fact, he could only manifest 3 chains at the moment. But even still, to be able to manifest 3 of the Uzumaki sealing chains, and for them to be the solid gold color that they were known for being, then that only showed the potential that the boy possessed. On top of that, Naruto would continue working on his chakra control, as that would help improve upon the skills he already had now, rounding out Naruto and making him a much more balanced and a much more dangerous fighter. And then finally there would be Sakura, who would be spending her 1 month training with Anko. After seeing what the girl was capable of doing so far, Anko felt she knew exactly where the girl needed to go next in her training. When it came to expanding her genjutsu arsenal, she decided to help her by teaching her the hell viewing technique, a genjutsu that once cast could place the opponent inside of a nightmarish hellscape where they would be plagued by their own worst fears. When it came to the girl's ninjutsu, the two best jutsus that could help her out in the way that she was now was the hidden shadow snake jutsu and the snake clone jutsu. The hidden shadow snakes was a summoning jutsu of sorts that allowed the user to summon snakes from around their arms or legs whenever called upon, to act as an extra set of arms or to help bind or strike at an opponent. And then there was the snake clone jutsu, which for its namesake worked like any other clone jutsu, like fire, shadow, water, anything of that nature, except it used snakes. And even once the clones were destroyed, the snakes could still be used in some form of offense if need be. But the most important thing was getting control over her curse mark, not allowing herself to be given in to the temptations of Orochimaru and the influence of the chakra that was bedded within. This allowed for the curse seal to work even stronger, not allowing her to fall victim to its power or influence. Of course, Team 7 wouldn't be the only ones who were working hard. There was also the likes of Hinata, who now found herself in the finals. However, she knew that if she were really even going to stand a chance, she was going to need help. Following the end of the prelims, Neji would have a one-on-one conversation with Hiashi Hyuga, where the truth of Neji's father's death would be brought to light. Of course, Neji was still skeptical. However, when Hinata spoke to him, truly pouring out her heart and desperately trying to mend the wounds that had been formed by her family, Neji could see that Hinata was truly sincere. Of course, he didn't have personal hatred towards her, but rather against the main household, which unfortunately she was a part of. But Hinata desperately wanted to change. She wanted to be better, and that's why she wanted Neji's help. This would actually be surprising for Neji. After everything he had done and how he had treated her for so long, he didn't think that she'd actually want his help, but she was adamant. If there was anyone who could prepare her for the exams, it would be him, and only him. Neji, after thinking it over begrudgingly, would open himself up to the idea of training her. However, it wasn't going to be easy, and there was a reason. In all likelihood, her first opponent would be Naruto. And unlike everyone else in this series, Neji, you could say, is one of the few people whose Byakugan can see just about everything. That includes seeing the big crush that Hinata had on the boy. Meaning that if she were ever going to be taken seriously, then she was going to have to get over that and get over it in a hurry. The only way to do this was by actual practice. Neji would use the transformation jutsu and transform himself into Naruto, and then dare Hinata to hit him. At first, this was easier said than done. The girl was a timid creature. She wasn't one to lash out in violence, especially if it looked like she was going to be harming Naruto. She never wanted to hurt Naruto. However, Neji did not make it easy on her at all, working on her mental state day by day, until eventually the girl, well, she finally snapped. And how Neji did it? Oh, it was not the brightest of ideas. It required some help, and some help that he would have Tenten give him. The two would use the transformation jutsu, with Neji transformed as Naruto and Tenten transformed as Sakura. They would pretend to be Naruto and Sakura, and the fake Naruto would be crushing really hard on Sakura in front of Hinata. At first, it broke Hinata's spirits. However, Neji knew he had to point her in the right direction, so he kept doing it in a way until it angered her. He kept doing it in a way until eventually, Hinata, she finally snapped. She felt like this was real. It had to be. The girl was so caught up in her emotions that she didn't even think to activate her Byakugan to see the truth. She was so caught up in her emotions, so caught up in her feelings of anxiety, that finally something else had occurred. That part of Hinata that was always so kind and innocent and sweet, it flipped. Now, you can call this version of Hinata whatever you want. You could say that this is the Hinata from the road to ninja, if you will. A Hinata that suddenly didn't want to wait. She didn't want to play things by ear, nor was she content with just hiding. With a yell, she came lunging from behind a tree, jumping towards Sakura. Her fist fully activated to use the gentle fist technique as her Byakugan blazed. 8 trigrams, 128 palms. Sakura would now de-transform to reveal Tenten, and Neji would de-transform to reveal his true self. However, Hinata, the only thing she could see was blind rage. She wasn't even in her right state of mind anymore, and Tenten, well, the girl had already been in a near-death experience fighting Gaara. Now this was even worse. The Byakugan princess looking down towards her target as she pointed and said, "Lock on." "No, Hinata, you mustn't do this!" Neji would use the 8 trigrams, 64 palms, attempting to counter each strike. However, Hinata had jumped to using 128, meaning that once Neji hit the 64, well, he was in for terrible thrashing. Neji was just barely able to recover, and Hinata had only just managed to regain her faculties, trying to figure out what had come over her. For some reason, that feeling of violence and rage, she didn't even know she was capable of doing that. From that day on, Neji had a newfound respect for Hinata, a newfound fear. This girl, this sweet, innocent girl, she was a monster, a true savage. And what was worse was that Naruto unknowingly had this girl's heart. If he wasn't careful, he wouldn't be a married man. He'd be a dead man. Finally, though, the day of the finals had arrived. Naruto arrived to the stadium along with everyone else. He and Sakura meeting up for the first time. Karin would be sitting in the stands as she would be watching on and cheering. And Jiraiya said he'd be arriving, although he was a bit late. Although for Karin and for Naruto, if he was running late, then there were some guesses as to where the Puri Sage could be. But the bigger note was the fact that Kakashi and Sasuke were late. Had something gone wrong? Had Orochimaru gotten to them somehow? Anko would calm her student, although even she was a bit worried. Was Kakashi just playing one of his usual late cards, or had something actually happened? With that, the finals would be underway. However, before they could start, there were still the 2 wild card matches that had to go down first. Remember, there were 10 participants, so before they could start with the first round being the best of 8, they would have to do a wild card, where there would be 2 matches, and the 2 winners would advance to the first round officially. The first match would be Naruto Uzumaki versus Shikamaru Nara. In terms of how the battle would go, Shikamaru would be on the back foot for most of the match. Primarily because Naruto was the most unpredictable of unpredictables that Shikamaru could possibly face. This wasn't to say that Shikamaru didn't have a strategy, and that catching Naruto wouldn't be somewhat of a challenge. However, the problem comes in the fact that Naruto's overall raw power and strength was simply just too much for Shikamaru to deal with. Ultimately, even when Shikamaru thought that he had Naruto cornered, Naruto was simply just able to turn the tide of battle against him. It didn't require Naruto using too much of everything he had in his arsenal, and for Shikamaru, he was able to see that the boy could be rather crafty when he wanted to be. Ultimately, the fight dragged on long enough, and Shikamaru decided it was best to give up. Simply put, Naruto had too much stamina to overcome. The boy's jutsus were just too powerful to deal with, and ultimately it would just be more trouble than it was worth. While Shikamaru would give up, allowing for Naruto to advance to the first round, he had still impressed many with his overall strategy and his skill, and knowing when to quit wasn't the bad trait of a ninja either. For Shikamaru, he thought that he had just abandoned any chance he had of really making Chunin, but in all honesty, he had done quite the opposite. The second match would be Sakura Haruno versus Dosu. While Dosu was definitely skilled in his own right, this was just simply not a match that would favor him all that well. Ultimately, Sakura just had too many techniques and skills that he couldn't overcome. Although he was able to counter her genjutsu by using his sound, and while his sound waves made from the gauntlet that he wore on his right sleeve was definitely a bit troublesome, it was easily subdued when Sakura would send an army of mini snakes inside of the gauntlet, plugging up its various contraptions and making it almost impossible to use, before delivering some devastating shots, and when mixed in with some of her genjutsu, would leave him paralyzed, beaten, and stunned. Sakura had demonstrated her skills well, and from the press box with the Hokage and Kazekage, the Kazekage would be looking down at Sakura intently. He even noticed some of his own skills used by the girl. It would recall to mind the conversation that he had had, Orochimaru with Kabuto, as he discussed what had happened in the Forest of Death. Lord Orochimaru, you seem worse for wear. The Uchiha truly surprised me. He has the eyes, Kabuto. The Rinnegan. The Rinnegan. Lord Orochimaru, you can't be serious. I am, Kabuto. There's no mistaking those eyes. You mean he has the same eyes as him, the leader of the Akatsuki? Indeed he does. But how? How could the boy have even attained such a power? Who knows? The Sharingan is such a strange and yet alluring power. It's said that it has ties to that of the Byakugan and maybe even the power of the Sage of Six Paths. But now it's in the possession of a child. Taking it for myself will not be easy. You weren't able to give him the curse mark? No. Unfortunately, a Kunoichi on his team got in the way. The pink-haired one, Sakura Haruno. And she's still alive? I know. That's what surprised me. She doesn't come from any clan or nobility. In fact, I believe her family is from the general population, the civilian clans. She has nothing to speak of, absolute worthless in every regard, and yet she survived. This could be an opportunity, Lord Orochimaru. If what you said is true, the girl has maybe more potential than you're giving her credit. I've been able to see her stats. She's a pretty knowledgeable individual, and she's pretty balanced in everything she can do, even if it's just basic. And she has an abnormal aptitude for genjutsu, on par with even that of the Uchiha himself. And she's not an Uchiha. I'm just saying, she might be the perfect specimen. That's what I was thinking. She's like a blank canvas that could be painted any shade of color. A truly wonderful thing. She's the perfect zero, the perfect starting point. I will allow her to keep my blessing. I wish to see what she can do in the future. If she can make the power her own, then maybe there will be more to her than meets the eye. It seems as though that boy's team have a whole bunch of interesting individuals. They even have the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki as well. Naruto, Kabuto would say. Indeed, to have a girl of her caliber, the Rinnegan and the Nine-Tails, I'm shivering with excitement. For now, we'll keep track of them all to see how they progress, and we'll make our move from there. In the meantime, with the wild cards now over, the first round was now set to begin. The first match would be Naruto versus Hinata. Next, Rock Lee versus Temari. Third, Shino versus Sakura. And last but not least, Sasuke versus Gaara. The crowd were now roaring, ready to see what was to come, as the Chunin exam's final rounds were about to begin. This concludes Naruto Rebirth. What if Sasuke got the Rinnegan earlier? Part 2. Stay tuned for later on this evening as we will be continuing Naruto Moonlight. What if Naruto was a Hyuga Part 2? And stay tuned for tomorrow's videos as we continue My Hero Academia Vows of Vengeance. What if Deku was a monster? Season 2 Part 4. And we continue What if Naruto was adopted by Tsunade? Naruto the Last Senju Part 2. This is Javon Harrington with Power Core Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time.